to the channel. My name is Adam Smith, and inside this game overview and gameplay video, I am looking forward to showing you Unstoppable. We have it here set up on the game table. This is designed by John D. Clare and will be hitting Kickstarter for June 18th. You'll find links to the campaign page in the pinned comment and video description, as well as in the top right-hand corner right now. Now, inside this video, I'm going to take you through a game overview at the front section of the video, as I always do, and then we're going to dive into a full solo play so you can actually see this game in action to help you make an informed decision when it does land on Kickstarter again for June 18th. Unstoppable is a solo or cooperative roguelite momentum deck building game, so fans of deck building games out there are going to want to keep their eye on this one. On the city planet of Series 2, every alleyway invites a quick and quiet death. In the lush forests of Veneros, a single misstep could land you in the belly of a beast. The harsh wasteland of Mithras holds both grave danger and a great treasure for those who search its stacks of discarded rubbish. Amidst the chaos, you find yourself thriving, learning, and growing, a child of rank, touched by fate, but a new danger shadows the future of all three worlds. Gather your allies and sharpen your skills, for the darkest days are yet to come. There's a world-ending menace that you must defeat to protect the star system and its people. You'll need to level up your abilities to have a shred of hope, train, upgrade, and become unstoppable. So the main goal of Unstoppable is to defeat the boss, as I alluded to, a world-ending menace that threatens the very way of life in your star system. Even as a heroic figure with cosmic potential, you won't be capable of such a monumental task at the very start, and there are many other smaller threats that you must keep at bay in the meantime while you build yourself up. You're going to have to train your powers, use your resources, and recruit new allies to your side in order to have a shot and a shred of hope at taking this boss down. So defeating the boss is the major win condition, and every boss is going to have a difference in terms of how you take them out. The prototype has 3 included. I've chosen the Menace, and as you can see at the very bottom portion of the written portion of this card, the reference card you're seeing here, it says to defeat this boss, you need to read an ending outcome on the boss card. So as I'm moving through gameplay inside this video, I'm going to be actively looking for an ending keyword outcome on one of the boss cards. How do you know what cards to get ready for the particular boss you've selected? Well, as I mentioned in the prototype here, we have 3 to select, and whenever you pick a boss, you're going to flip it over to the opposite side. You're going to see the setup instructions. It'll tell you how to set up that boss, and each one of them is very unique. So that's a very cool aspect of this game. Now this one, the Menace here, has a set deck, which I've placed up top. Typically this deck would actually be here, and the cards we're working through would be up top. It's be reversed essentially, but because we're filming things here, I wanted to reverse it so that you guys can actually see things that we're working through more easily. So the stuff that's active and I'm working through is going to be down here, and the rest of the boss cards will be up top. Once we head into gameplay, we'll read this card to find out exactly what's going on. So now we know what we need to do in order to succeed against the Menace, but how could we potentially lose? Well, there are 2 ways you can lose the game. The first one is if this danger tracker moves all the way to the very end where the skull icon is. If it lands there, you have lost the game. In just a second, I'll talk about the final way we can lose Unstoppable, but first, let's talk about difficulty level. When you're done the setting up of the game, you have the option to choose between normal difficulty, hard difficulty, or expert difficulty. There is no easy in the prototype. So we're starting on normal, and normal difficulty tells us that we're going to be skipping the green spots on the track. So in other words, as the danger increases after every turn, we're playing normal. We can go through every single one of these spots, but once we hit this one right here, we'll be hopping right over the green ones and straight to the skull and crossbones, and that will be a loss. Now, if you want to amp up the difficulty even more, you go to the hard level and you start skipping the yellow ones on the track. So basically, we're skipping this one here and this one here. This one actually has an effect that you can pay a credit in order to eliminate a card. So it helps you to control and thin out your deck for cards that are not really providing much of a benefit. So you don't get that when you're playing hard in that space, as the danger marker will basically hop right over top of that. So if you want to go to the expert level, things get even more tough, because now the danger level increase after every turn is going to hop even faster, especially through this first portion until it gets to here. It'll slow down after that, but time is not going to be on your side when you're playing on expert difficulty. The final way you can lose Unstoppable is if your health is ever reduced down to 0. So if it goes from 10 where it starts all the way to 0, you have lost. The other track to the left of it is your armor track. You can actually increase this during gameplay in order to take hits on behalf of your health to help you to not take health hits. And of course, as you gain armor and you use it, you lose it. And also you can't just accumulate it endlessly. After every single turn, this armor is going to reset down to 0 no matter how much you've built up during the turn. With the win and loss conditions out of the way, let's now talk about character setup. So we have the character dashboard here. You have, as I mentioned, armor tracker, the health tracker. You'll have to choose a character. I've gone ahead and chosen this individual, a bounty hunter. I think he's very cool looking. And then we have 3 other individuals as part of the prototype you could potentially select. On the back side of each of these characters, you'll find more information about the character. We're going to go ahead and flip over the one I've chosen. We'll read about it. It also will let you know the starting cards to help you build out the starting deck. Each character's deck is going to be comprised of 10 cards. 3 of the cards are always going to be listed on the back of the card, and then the other 6 are generic across all the characters. On the back of my character, you'll see his name. You'll also see the starting cards. Specifically, we have Vesper the Junkyard Cat. It's an ally card. We'll see this come through into my hand in the future. We have the Night Market and Ingenuity, 2 other unique cards for this character. I'm going to refer to this character as Z throughout the playthrough to make things easy. I actually have Ingenuity as one of the cards in my starting hand. We'll talk more about that in a second, along with 2 strike cards, which are 2 of the generic ones. Now, if we take a look at the focuses on, it'll give you a heads up as to what this character is best at focusing on, which is bargaining with junkers, credits, and upgrades. So every character during setup will have a 10-card deck. You'll have the 3 unique cards that you saw right here on the back of this one. You're then going to have 7 generic ones. 6 of them will be strike cards, and 1 of them will be spare credits. Now, on the back of every one of those 10 cards, there will be a named threat card that you need to place on the back of the cards. So, for example, here with Ingenuity, if we actually flip it over to the opposite side, there is a threat on it. And in order to know which threat should be on the opposite side, it's as simple as just taking the cards out when you're doing the setup and taking a look at the back of Ingenuity, and you'll see that it tells you it's paired with Sporling. So it'll let you know exactly which threat is supposed to be paired with it in the sleeve. So you have 10 character cards in the sleeves, and then you'll have 10 threats on the back side of each of them. You shuffle them all together. You'll place them with the threat side face up right here. You'll draw 3 to make your starting hand, and you'll only care about the side that is vertical, not the side that is horizontal, because you don't care about the threats when it's in your hand. You care about this side of the equation because these are going to provide you the benefits. And then you're going to take out 3 threats from the top of this deck into the active area here. These are going to be considered active threats, and I've done this. So this is why I have my deck strewn across 3 different spaces currently. When game setup is complete, you'll have 3 threat cards in the active threat area. The thing to keep in mind with this is that during a turn in the main sequence, you'll be able to play cards, use effects, and other things in order to dole out damage to cards as you wish, unless, of course, there's a specific keyword, which there is, that will cause you to focus all your damage on a certain card over the others. But typically, you can actually pick which of the active threats you want to hit and take out. And there's benefits to focusing on certain ones over others. Some won't take as much to be taken out, and some will actually provide an additional benefit down here in the bottom left-hand corner. For instance, these ones say when defeated, you're going to gain a credit, whereas this one doesn't give you anything in that regard. Whenever you take out one of these active threats, not only do you gain the bonus that's in the bottom left if there is one, but you're always going to be able to take the card, flip it over, and place it in your hand. Now let's quickly touch on the iconography across the center of the card here. You'll see a number of circle icons, but there's differences in terms of how they look. So this one right here is the standard attack value. This card right here, if you do not deal with it during your main phase, in the threat phase, it is going to hit your health for 2, unless of course you built up some armor, and then your armor can mitigate that hit. But otherwise, it's going to start whittling you down towards 0, and you'll lose the game once you hit 0. So you don't want to have that happen. Now when you're actually trying to take out one of these active threats, you're trying to take out its health, and its health is equal to its an attack value and its defensive value. It won't always have defense, and this one doesn't. It just has that attack value of 2, so that's how much damage you need to put on it to take it out, and if you leave it there, that's how much damage is coming back at you. Now, if you're dealing with the thief here, this thief's going to hit you for 1, but it has a very interesting attack icon over here with a skull inside, and what that means is, in order to find out that value, you're going to go to your boss card and take a look at where the danger marker is, and there's a numeric value beside it, you're going to add that in. In this way, this card is going to be scaling throughout the entire game, because once this danger starts increasing from 0 to 1 to 2, 3, 4, and up to 5, things are going to get real nasty. This will be a much higher cost enemy to take out with damage. So as an example right now, this enemy is actually quite easy. It's just a single hit to take this enemy out, as this icon represents 0 thanks to the danger marker being right there, so easy stuff. But if this danger marker was down here on 2, then this would actually be a total of 3 hits we would need to take it out. And of course, it'd be doling that much at us if we didn't actually take it out. Now let's touch on the final card, the Junker Cyclist. This one has an attack value of 1 and a defense value that's based off the boss, which currently is 0. So all it would take to take this thing out is just 1 hit, and all it will be doling back at us is just 1 hit if we left it alive. Now, as the tracker goes along here, let's say that this thing went all the way down to 2, then all of a sudden the defense value of this thing goes way up. Now it's going to be attack plus defense equals its total health you need to take it out. So that means it's now going to be a 3 you need to take it down. But if you happen to leave it in there, it's only going to hit you for 1. So the difference between this card and this card, if we were using the same value on the danger level at 2, is this one would only hit you for 1, but you'd need 3 to take it out, whereas this one over here would need 3 to take it out, but if you don't take it out, it's going to hit you for 3. One recommendation I have around active threats is that if any come into this area that have a keyword on it, make sure that you're familiar with the keyword. If you're not, look it up, because it can have big time impacts on how that threat works. We've covered 2 of the 3 major sections of the game board. We've covered the boss, we've covered our main character. Now we're going to touch on the market area for this deck building game. So you're going to see a number of things here. First off, the threat deck. This is just simply comprised and shuffled cards based on setup instructions for the boss you're going up against. So it's going to be very easy. You'll read it. It'll tell you exactly which cards to shuffle together, and that will create your threat deck. Now from here, we just simply have cards staged. These are a number of core cards by level. You'll see a level in the bottom right-hand corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You simply just break them into those stacks, shuffle them up, and place them left to right. Now, I'm assuming you guys noticed the 2 white tokens sitting above the level 1 deck. These are called level tokens. The bottom token is very important. It is the actual level you currently are right now. So we are currently level 1. When we move to the next level, the bottom white token will move to the level 2 deck, just above it, to represent we're at level 2. And this, of course, is going to be opening up more opportunities to get cards at higher levels as we go along. So you might be wondering, well, how do you level up in general? Leveling up happens when you start churning it through your character cards, the ones that are sitting with the threat side face up that end up going into the active threat area. Once this entire area is depleted, underneath of these cards are actually instructions on how to level up and also when to level up. And you'll see within it, it'll also let you know you're moving those level discs by 1. So when a level up occurs, both of the level up discs will move 1 position forward going to the right. And both of those discs may not be right together like they are right now. They actually might be in 2 different spaces. They both still move 1 position. So again, the bottom token represents your actual level currently, which for me is 1. And then the one on top is one you can manipulate during gameplay with effects on cards. Will allow you to move the top level token further down the row to allow you to potentially draft cards from levels that you are not currently at yet. Once we get into gameplay, you'll get to see those level discs in action. It's very cool how they work. Let's move on to upgrades. So the upgrade deck is simply a shuffled deck of cards that has upgrades that either affect this top section area or the bottom section. And these upgrades will be slotted into cards that you have in hand, and they're going to position themselves either in the top section here or the bottom section down here. And they're going to bolster things, give you additional effects, and make those cards more useful. They're going to come at a cost though. The credits in terms of how much they cost to purchase them are in the top right hand corner. Sometimes there will actually be a discount depending on if you're tagging that upgrade with a card that actually pairs well with it, or maybe you're using some kind of game effect to actually impact the cost overall and bring it down. One thing you'll notice on the upgrade cards is that you will get a benefit in one of these 2 positions depending on which card you select, but on the very bottom it'll also let you know what kind of a benefit you're actually giving the threat card. So when you purchase an upgrade and you slot the upgrade in between your core card and your threat card, because it always goes in the middle, you always have to think about the fact that not only are you gaining a benefit on the core card side, but you're also giving a benefit to the threat side. And last but not least, we have an area for components. So these are the credits in denominations of 3 and 1. We have the damage markers in 5 and 1. And then we have 3 additional action markers beyond the 3 we already have on our character card. So at max, you can actually have up to 6 action tokens on your character's dashboard. And speaking of the character's dashboard, right on it you can see the turn sequence. During this game of Unstoppable, you'll be going through a series of turns, and it'll start with the upkeep phase where you gain 3 action points, which I've got right here represented by tokens. You refresh any allies that you actually have situated on the game table. In other words, if they are exhausted and turn sideways, you're going to put them back upwards, and you resolve any upkeep effects which we don't have. So at this point, we've done this setup, we've actually finished the upkeep phase, and we're ready to dive into our very first draft phase. Just before we dive into gameplay, let's read the very first boss card to get an appreciation as to what's going on. This is called Talk to the Inventor. You track Andrea to a lavish penthouse apartment on Series 2. When you ask after the pirates, Duomo grows melancholy. My greatest triumph, android sentience. And what do my children do with it? Crime. Ungrateful little bolt buckets. You gather that one of her prototype war droids, Jenko, has set up shop on Mithras. The other, Scourgeon, works from a hidden base on Virnos. It seems you'll need to get off-world. When each player is level 2, choose a destination, Mithras or Virnos. Flip this card and read the matching outcome. So we need to get leveled up to that level 2 position, and we're currently at 1. Let's begin gameplay and follow the turn sequence. We've already done the upkeep phase by gaining 3 action points, refreshing all allies, which we don't currently have in play, but we will later on, and resolving any upkeep effects, which we currently don't have. So we move on to the draft phase, where we draw 3 cards and keep 1 from a core deck, and it's based on where our level disc is at. So we'll draw 3 cards from the level 1 deck, we'll place them to the side and choose 1 to draft. Here are my 3 cards to draft from. It's important to note that each one of these cards comes from a specific faction. You'll find that faction up here in the circular icon. Now these 2 right here are known as silver. This one right here is a junker. Other factions we'll run into as we go through gameplay is the Council faction and the Viren faction. And as we go through gameplay, you'll see why having certain factions in your hand will benefit you for certain abilities, and other times they won't have any impact at all. But there will be certain strategies you can employ by going after specific factions. So let's quickly go over the rest of the cards here. At the very top right-hand corner of each of the cards is going to be the action token cost. So remember those 3 white action tokens that are sitting on my character board? If I wish to play this card from my hand, it's going to cost me 2 for 2 meters under, 1 for exceed your limits, and nothing for this one. So I'm actually eyeing this one simply because the action point cost is 0 and provides a decent benefit over here. The other benefit is that it's a junker card and it lines up really well with my character. Because this is the very first draft phase, I'll go over some of the icons on these cards to give you an understanding of why I'm picking one over the rest. So this one here, 2 meters under, a pretty good card. It will cost me 2 action points in order to actually use this card, so it's very expensive, but it will provide me with 2 hits of 1 damage apiece, so I can put those against active threats, which is pretty good, but I do have some cards in hand at a basic level that 1 card will do 1 damage. So this one is really expensive in my opinion for what it provides, so I'm kind of leaning away from that one currently. This one down here, exceed your limits, will cost 1, but it states down here that we can actually move the top level token. Remember earlier I talked about the 2 level tokens? The one on the bottom is your actual level, but the one on the top can actually move forward, allowing you to draft cards further down the levels in the future. This card, when played, will allow you to move that top token 1 level up, meaning it would give us the opportunity to draft a level 2 card if it's in play. So pretty cool one. And then it says if you have 5 health or less, you get to deal 2 damage. Now the Junker card is really appealing from the fact that it doesn't cost any action points whatsoever to use, and then down here it's going to provide 1 damage. It also has this bargain effect here. We'll get more into that later on, but essentially you can bargain in order to get upgrades at a cheaper cost. Once you know which core card you want to draft, which I do, I'll be taking Scrounge. I'm going to slot it into this very first sleeved card here, which is a threat card face down, but I'll be placing this Scrounge card right on top. So this is facing up and the threat will be on the back side, and then I'm placing that card in my hand. These 2 return to the bottom of the level 1 deck. The key thing to remember when you're putting this card into the sleeve is to make sure you're not looking at the threat on the opposite side whatsoever. Simply just slot it in and place it in your hand. With the draft phase now wrapped up, we move into the main phase where the heart of the game is, where you'll be able to take a number of different actions, things like playing cards, exhausting allies, and buying upgrades. Now, to buy an upgrade, you're going to need credits to do so, and one thing I forgot from setup was to give myself 3 credits to start. Mentioned this in the video earlier, but showing it right now. Now, the purpose of the main phase by playing cards and exhausting allies and buying upgrades is all in an effort to clear out the active threats that are out here. We don't want to leave any in that area because if we go through the main phase and get to the threat phase, they're all going to hit us for damage, as I talked about before, unless, of course, we have built up some type of armor. In the case of this specific boss, we're also keeping our eye not only on the active threats, but also the actual boss deck, which is going to have us doing specific criteria potentially as we move through that deck. It might have us spending a number of damage or potentially credits in order to progress the deck, as we need to get to an ending keyword to win it. So let's get started in the main phase. One thing I'll make mention of is that as I have cards in my hand, I'm going to keep them on an angle off to the side. Ones that I play will be face up, and then of course if I exhaust them, they'll be turned 90 degrees. So this is currently going to be my hand, so you guys can at least see what I've got in my hand going into it. So I have a couple strikes here. I could pay 1 action point in order to do 1 damage for either of these cards. I have Ingenuity, could pay 1 action point in order to deal X amount of damage. X is the number of upgrade cards in your hand and in play. So this one really compounds quite nicely once you have a number of upgrades on cards not only in your hand but also in play. And then this one, Scrounge, we've already talked about, is going to help us to bargain for better upgrades. My focus is going to be to put damage on this Junker Cyclist, but it is worth mentioning there's nothing stopping you from spending credits over here to go after upgrades. And when you get an upgrade, you have the choice to place that upgrade in between the court card and the threat card of a card that's either in your hand or a card that you've actually played already. We'll go ahead and skip the upgrades for now because I want to gather some more credits first. We're going to play a strike card. It's going to cost 1 action point, so this token will go away, and it's going to provide 1 damage. I'm going to place that damage on the Junker Cyclist, and that is actually all I'm going to need to take it out because its health is the complete total of a defense value, which is currently 0, thanks to the boss card up here. This value is 0, and the attack value, which is 1. So it only has 1 health. We've already taken it out. So as soon as we take it out, we're going to go ahead and flip that card. It now becomes part of our hand, and we're also going to gain a credit. The card that I received was the Night Market. It costs nothing to play it, which is great. It's a Junker card. It says gain 2 credits. And then until the end of this turn, this amount can only be spent on bargaining costs. That actually works out pretty good because I have a card which I picked up during drafting that works for bargaining. So I'm going to play the Night Market card. It costs no action points, which is great. And the 2 credits that I get will not sit in my credit reserve for anything I wish. It will sit on the card itself because I only get these credits until the end of the turn, and it can only be used for bargaining costs. Next, I'm going to play my Scrounge card. It's not going to cost me any action points. It's going to provide me with 1 damage to place on an enemy. I'm going to take out the Thief. And I'm choosing to take out the Thief because, again, in terms of the health value of these cards, it's attack plus defense. And right now, this attack value is 0 and this attack value is 1. So 1 damage will take this one out, whereas I'll need 2 damage for that Blade Master to take it out. So the 1 damage wipes out the card. It goes into hand, and it's another strike card. Let's go ahead and resolve the next effect on the Scrounge card. This one is Bargain 3. So it says the next upgrade you buy this turn costs 3 less. Now you might be wondering, well, interesting. It says Bargain 3. What does the 3 mean? The 3 is the cost in credits you have to pay to take advantage of the effect. Then you're probably also wondering, well, if I spend 3 credits for Bargain 3 and the effect gives me 3 off of an upgrade, why don't I just keep the credits and put it towards the upgrade? Well, that's where the bargain comes into play. So if you take a look down below, it says Bargain X costs the number of credits minus 1 for each card of this faction in hand and in play. And when it talks about this faction, it's the faction that this bargain is a part of, which is currently the Junker card. So this Junker card is going to provide a subtraction of 1 to the Bargain 3, making it a bargain of 2 currently. So we need to only spend 2 credits to take advantage of this. But we also have another faction that matches the same one. So now we get an additional 1 credit discount. So now we're only paying 1 credit in order to take advantage of the next upgrading you buy costing 3 or less. So that's where the bargaining comes in. And what's even better is on this card we put out the Night Market, we have 2 credits that can only be used as part of spending towards bargain costs. So guess what? We'll spend the 1 we need in order to make this completely free. Now we just get the benefit of an upgrade for 3 less. Now, across all the upgrades that are currently in play, one of them is very, very expensive, and I'm very, very tempted to push my way towards it, and that's because, as you will see, there's a discount on this one. It says it costs 2 less if added to a junker card. So right away, even though it costs 7, it will be a 5 if I can attach it to a junker card, and then I've already got a reduction of 3 credits thanks to the bargain, so that means it's now only going to cost me a total of 2 credits to pick up this card. We have a total of 4 credits right now. I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 in order to buy that particular upgrade, which is going to be a huge boost. And the best part about it is we got it very, very cheap. So we got a 7 cost card from the upgrade row, which was the highest cost card very early on in the game, which is extremely good. So now we have to attach our upgrade to one of our junker cards as we took advantage of the 2 cost discount. I don't currently have any junker cards in hand to tie it to, but I could tie it to one of these 2 right here. I think I'll put it on the night market. Now this works by simply just separating out the threat and the core card and placing the upgrade straight inside the middle, and you'll see the effects will be right there. Now this card is already in play, so it's not going to do anything for us right out of the gates, but we have upgraded it for future use. So overall, I am very happy with what we got here, but another strategy is to take an upgrade when you can actually place it on a card in your hand, so when you actually play the card during the main phase that you actually acquired the upgrade, you get the effects right away. But I'm not going to need them because I'm doing pretty good overall here, so placing it for a future use is a-okay in this case. Plus, for how I actually string things together here, I was able to get a card that I really, really shouldn't have been able to stretch for, and that was a nice thing to get. Let's continue on with the main phase. I want to take out this last active threat. I would love to have absolutely no active threats going into the threat phase, so I don't take any damage. Now, one thing that's on this one, different from the others, is a keyword rage. What does that mean? Rage threats are going to wreak havoc on your allies. During the threat phase, for each rage threat in the battlefield, you must discard 1 ally from play. So you haven't seen allies yet. All you've seen so far are cards that are listed as tactics. These are cards that come in, they're used, and that's it. When you actually have an ally that comes into play, you'll pay its cost in action points, but it'll sit here and it will remain in play, and you can exhaust it over a series of turns until this deck is completely depleted and you level up. Then all of your allies are put back to the discard pile and shuffled back through again. And you'll see how that all works later on once we get an ally into play. But for right now, we still have 2 action point discs remaining because I've been playing a lot of cards that don't cost anything except for the 1 I already spent. So let's go ahead and do some damage to this thing. To take it out, we need to do 2 damage. This is very easy. We've got 1 action disc to spend right here. We'll play Strike for 1 damage. We'll place 1 damage on this Blade Master, and then we'll do the exact same thing with this one right here for the last action point. That'll do the 2nd damage, which is going to give us a credit, which we'll place down here, and we gain that card. Well, speaking of allies, look what we ended up getting. We got ourselves Vesper the Junkyard Cat. This is one of the specific cards for our character up here, and this individual is an ally. So currently it's in my hand. I do not have this in play, and I don't have enough action points to put this into play right now, but later I will, and you'll notice there's an exhaust icon on it because once it comes out, you can then go ahead from turn to turn exhausting it to take advantage of benefits. So in this case, I've reached the end of my main phase. There's nothing more that I want to try and accomplish. I have cards in hand that cost an action point, which I don't have to play. So at this point, there's nothing else for me to do except potentially spend some credits and go after an upgrade up top, which might not actually be a bad idea. So in this case, I'm likely going to spend my 3 credits on an upgrade because if I have the ability to do so, I probably want to pump up one of my cards. Now I could go after something like this, which actually wouldn't be a bad one to go after because as you can see, this one actually provides a boost of 2 action points, and providing yourself more action points means that every single turn that card comes out, you're going to have additional actions to be able to spend, meaning you can play more cards. That'll really bump up what you're able to do on your turn. So that is a great one to go after, and I think I'll do it. You'll also see what the enemy's going to get on the threat side of the equation down below. In this case, going to be a bump up on armor. So I'm going to go ahead and spend my 3 credits. We'll put them back in the supply, so I have absolutely none left, but that's okay because I really want this upgrade. And the great thing about this upgrade is that I didn't take it for any discount, so I can place this on anything I want. I can place it on a card that's in hand. I can place it on a card in play. Also, every time you buy an upgrade, you go ahead and replenish the spot you've taken from. Now, which card should this upgrade go on? Well, this is actually a pretty good one. Ingenuity here says that it's going to deal X amount of damage, and X is the number of upgrades on cards in your hand and in play. So why not put the upgrade on this particular card and make sure that we're able to bolster it at the time we get this? With that upgrade now complete, we have no credits left, we have no action points left, and there's nothing we can do on the boss cards currently as we're still trying to work our way to level 2. So at this point, we now move into the threat phase. It says to take damage from all active threats and lose armor or health for each damage. And again, we don't have any active threats, so nothing's hitting our armor first, and then nothing's getting through to our health because we have nothing to deal with. I ended up doing a pretty awesome job on the active threats, so we now move to the cleanup phase. We're going to discard all played tactics, which is literally going to be every single card that we put into play. We don't have any allies yet, so all these cards get discarded into the discard pile, and the credit on the night market goes back to the reserve. If we had any action points over here, we would lose them all at this point. We don't have any anyway. We reset our armor to 0, so if we had accumulated armor in order to try to avoid taking damage during the threat phase, that is always reset back down to 0 at the end of every single turn sequence. Next, we refill the battlefield with active threats. While placing these active threats out, it doesn't matter where you place them. You can place them in any way that makes sense for you. Anytime I see the keyword taunt, I always seem to place it closest to me because it reminds me that this target is the main target for damage, the first individual I have to hit out of the rest of them. So we've got 3 right here. The last step of the turn sequence is to move the danger marker 1 position, and we're going to move it right here. We know that we're going to be going into this space because I'm playing on normal difficulty, so the only spaces I'll be skipping on this track will be the 2 green spaces at the very end. However, if we were playing on expert level difficulty, we would actually be moving from the space we were currently at all the way down to this one here, and you'll see certain spaces the numeric value will start to uptick. That again is going to relate back to these boss icon symbols, meaning that they're going to power up over time, and also there's icons in certain spaces which will trigger giving you certain effects. So in this case, we are just going down by 1. And that's going to do it for the very first turn sequence. We continue playing through until we defeat the boss based on the boss conditions, or we lose the game from our health going all the way to 0, or if the danger track goes all the way to the very end. So we'll move into the next turn right now, and of course we'll drop off explanations as we go. I'll only talk about things that are new and my strategy going forward. The upkeep phase gives us 3 action points back, as always, refreshing our allies as well, but we don't currently have any, and we resolve any upkeep effects which we currently don't have. We now move to the draft phase. We take a look at where our level markers are, and of course both of them reside in the same position, so we're still drafting from the level 1 deck. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any of the icons on that top disc to move it further down the road to be able to draft something from a higher level. Making this choice was actually quite difficult. There are different factions here for sure. The other 2 that you didn't see last time are now present. So we have Viren here, and then this one up top is the Council faction. So at this point, you've seen a card from all 4 factions up close. This one here is a tactic. It says it's going to give you an action point. Then you're going to be able to conspire to refresh 1 ally. Conspire says requiring other card of this faction in hand or in play to make it happen. So that's interesting because I do have the Ingenuity card which lines up with this faction. So this would actually be the one that I'm tempted to go for, being that it costs nothing to get out there, and refreshing an ally could mean I could refresh my Junkyard Cat, which is very tempting. The other one over here is Passionate Diplomat. This one is a 2-cost card, rather expensive, but it is an ally, so it has the ability to be exhausted for benefits. And then down here we have the Emporium for 1. This is a Junkyard card, so that would bolster other cards that I have that need the Junkyard faction, which I know I have 1 of. And then it also gives me a quick way to get some credits, and I actually think I might like this one a little bit better than this one. So the other 2 I didn't choose went back to the bottom of the level 1 deck, and this card is going to be slotted in the top card of the threat deck, again not looking at it whatsoever, and it goes into my hand. I think right at the gates the right thing to do here might be to get some credits and go after an upgrade right away. So we're going to go ahead and play this card here for 1 action point, and it's going to allow us to gain 3 credits. Let's go take a look at the upgrades and see if we can pick something up. So taking a look at the upgrades here, this one's a really interesting one. It costs 5, but it has a 2 cost less discount if attached to a Viren card, which I do have Ingenuity in my hand. So that means it would only cost 3, which is all I have for credits, which would be perfect. So I could pick this one up, and when the card that's attached to is exhausted, I gain 2 armor, so that's a benefit, and 1 action point. We have a replicator up here for 6. That's pretty expensive. It says repeat this card's original effect. I actually really like that upgrade, so it allows you to literally repeat the original card's effect. Nothing to do with its upgrades. That can be very beneficial. So for instance, if I attach that to the 3 credits that I just gained, I could actually have 6 going forward on that card, which would be huge, but it does cost a lot to get that, and I don't have the credits for it right now. Moving along, this one costs 4. I can't go after this one either. This card costs 2 less to play, which is nice in terms of the action points. This one's 3, so I could go after the pistol. When exhausted, I'm able to go ahead and do an additional point of damage, so I'd have to be attached to an ally to be able to be exhausted. And then this one over here, the transport, this one costs, it looks like it says 2 less if added to a Iron card, so that is doable, and actually, that one would make it free. It's a tough call between the two of them, to be honest. The one on the right here allows me to focus, and what that means is it's going to take into account the card that it's attached to's faction, and then any other factions that I have that match that same one is going to be the number of allies that I can potentially refresh. So it's pretty good, but it may not exactly be what I'm going for right now. It still might be better to go for the armor. And then over here, this one costs 2, but gives you a 5 armor boost. That is pretty awesome. In the end, I got tempted by the one on the far right, so I took it for 2 credits. I have 1 credit remaining. The one that came in to replace it provides an additional action point, but has 4 damage attached to it. This one could be a great one in the future. Let's go ahead and take my hollow plated one, which is going to be a nice armor boost. I'll place it on my ingenuity card, which is going to fill it up completely, so all the slots are now full, and I could play these cards from hand now. And the great thing about this is these upgrades are helping to deal more damage when it gets played. So we're going to go ahead and play this card for 1 action point. We'll deal damage equal to the number of upgrades in my hand and in play, which is currently just the 2 I have on here, which is enough to actually take out the one we need to focus on because it has the taunt keyword. This is a 0 currently on the actual boss track. It's still a 0 in the position we're in for its defense, but the attack value of 2 gives it a health of 2. The 2 damage I'm firing at it takes it out, so we gain this card in hand with no additional bonus, and we got ourselves some spare credits. Now, when resolving effects on cards, as I talked about earlier in the first turn, you can resolve these 3 effects on the card in any order that suits you. So if I wanted to, I could have taken the 2 action points first and then done the middle original text and then gone and done the armor. You get to choose how you resolve them, and at times that will truly matter. In this case, not so much, but I'm still going to take those 2 action points, so we'll go ahead and put those on, and our armor is going to jump up to 5. This one is free, so I might as well go ahead and use it. Spare credits is going to cost nothing in order to gain a credit, so now we've got 2. Next, I'm going to play my Junkyard Cat. I've taken an action point off the top for it, as it states in the top right-hand corner, and I can choose to exhaust this to do a bargain 3. If I choose to exhaust this, the bargain 3 is going to cost me 3 to get the 1 damage, but I get a discount of 1 for the faction of the card itself, so it'll cost me 2, and I have 2 credits, so I will spend those 2 credits in order to do 1 damage. The 1 damage I'm going to place, it doesn't matter on which of these thieves. I'm going to hit this one here, and this is a 1. This is a 0 currently based on the boss track, so this is gone. This now goes into my hand, and that gives me a strike card, which is good because right away I can pay and play another action point by paying that in order to play this card to do another damage, and that is going to take care of the final thief over here, and we gain that in hand as well, which we don't need to use right now. Now, one thing to note about the Junkyard Cat that's really cool is that as we get higher up in our levels, the bottom white token at the very top of the playmat, as that moves along and we level up, we're going to be able to take advantage of other things like getting an additional credit or potentially doing a bargain 4 for 2 more damage. And so long as you are actually at the level it specifies or above, you're able to take advantage of any or all of these different effects. We head into the threat phase. If any active threats existed, they would hit us now. Of course, our armor would help us out in that capacity, but we don't have any threats, so nothing to worry about. Moving into the cleanup phase, we now discard all our player tactics, so every tactic we played is gone. The ally we played stays here, though. Any action points we had left over from our turn are completely removed, and also our armor goes back to 0. Now, to this point, every single turn, we've been able to wipe out all 3 active threats. If there happened to be a threat that was left over in here, let's say, we would just replenish until we have 3 active threats total back in here again. But as you're going to see right now, we're trying to do so, and we only have 1. So we're going to place 1 out, and when we go to draw another one, we can't. What does that mean? We're going to level up. As it mentions right here, which I absolutely love, right underneath the depletion of the deck, it shows you when to level up. If your deck is ever empty when there are no active threats, or if your deck is empty when a new threat must be added, the second one is exactly what we ran into, we need to do a level up. So it talks about how to do this. We go through 5 steps. First, we advance both level discs by 1. So both the discs, no matter where they're at, whether they're together or separate at this point in time, they both move up the track by 1. Our level up tokens are currently together, so they simply just move from deck 1 up to deck 2, which is level 2. Step number 2 is discarding all tactics and allies from play and discard down to 3 cards. Very easy. The ally that is here is going to be discarded. All our tactics were already handled, so this goes here. In terms of cards in hand, we only have 1, so we don't have to discard down because as long as we have 3 or less, we are A-okay. Then it says optionally eliminate any 1 card. That can come from anything in your hand or anything in your discard pile at this point. And this is completely up to you and your strategy in terms of how you're tuning your deck. So again, you have 6 cards in your deck that are basic strike cards. So you might want to get rid of these as they only give 1 damage for 1 action point, which is not great. The other one that's in there is spare credits. It costs nothing for action points, but it gives you 1 credit. So I'll probably keep that one around for a little bit longer, but the strike ones that are only for 1 damage probably need to be thinned out in order to make the best use of cards coming back. So we'll go ahead and we're going to eliminate this one right here. Step number 4 says resolve any boss specific effects. And actually we do have something we need to actually trigger right now. Based on the card, it's stated the second we leveled up to level 2, we're going to go ahead and flip over a card. As we talked about at the beginning of gameplay, we have 2 options here to choose from once we hit level 2. I'm going to choose to go to the destination Mithras. When you flip over the card, you'll see both of the resolutions. I'm just hiding the one I didn't choose, so you can find that on your own when you're playing through. This one says, travel to Mithras. It says, when your shuttle lands on Mithras, your local contacts inform you that a suspicious group has been meeting at the loading dock at a local cantina. You reveal card 22 and place it near the boss console. At the end of this turn, replace this card with card 01. Boss card number 22 has instructional text on it for paying costs on these boss cards as we go through the deck. It says pay the cost listed next to the choice on the card to activate that effect, then flip the card over and read your chosen result. If playing with 2 players, then the costs are double, but players can split these costs however they want. I'm only playing with 1, so I can actually take the number as it is. There is essentially a breakdown of 5 different ways you could be paying costs. You're either going to assign damage to the card, you're going to pay credits, or you're going to pay through action points, or you're going to eliminate cards from your hand of a certain level or higher, or one player removes some armor from themselves. That wraps up step number 4. The next step is to reshuffle the cards in your discard pile and place them here, threat side up. And just like that, the level up is complete, and we can continue placing active threats until we have 3 in the battlefield area. So we have another thief coming out, and the next one is another thief, so 3 thieves total. The final step of the cleanup phase is to move the danger marker 1 step forward, placing it right here, and now we have a numerical value for that boss icon, which is going to impact those threats in the active threat area. There's also an icon on here let's talk about right now in the bottom right-hand corner. That symbol on the boss danger track gives us the ability to go ahead right now through the upgrades, the 6 of them that are sitting on screen, and decide any we want to return to the bottom of the upgrade deck, and then we get to refill with new upgrades. There was only 1 in the upgrade row that I wasn't really a fan of. It also cost 4. I got rid of it, and the one on the top of the deck is virtualized. This one only costs 1. It allows me to gain some armor, and even more importantly, allows me to move the top level disc 1 space down the track, allowing me to go after higher level cards during a future draft. While at the cantina, we have the ability to investigate suspicious activity going on here. When this card enters play, shuffle the Mithras threats together and place them on top of the threat deck. So that is this deck of cards right here, already sleeved, ready to go. We're going to shuffle them up, and they literally get placed on top of the existing threat deck. It's not shuffled together. The deck in the top left-hand corner, which was set up by the boss card, now has these additional cards being placed on top. And the card gives us an opportunity to pay in different ways to progress past this and flip this card over. The first thing we could do, if we want, is to inflict damage. And if we do, we can intimidate the lackeys. Or we can actually buy information by paying them credits. We're starting a brand new turn sequence. Upkeep phase has us gaining 3 action points, no allies to refresh, no upkeep effects to deal with at the moment. Moving into the draft phase. Because we leveled up in the prior turn, we're able to draft for the first time on the level 2 deck. Here are the 3 cards coming off the level 2 deck. We have ourselves 2 tactic cards and 1 ally across 3 completely different factions. Now the cost across these are all decently high, except for this one here for 1, but these ones at 2 come at a cost. Now if we go for the ally, if we get this into play for 2 action points, we can exhaust it to gain ourselves an action point back, so it only costs 1 in the end, and we gain 1 credit. So it's not really that great, but it could help us if we need to grab an upgrade and we don't really have much credits, and that could actually help us towards getting through the boss deck, which has us needing 3 credits to buy information. So that's something, but we know we have 3 thieves in the active threat area we have to deal with, so maybe the one in terms of damage is the one we should be going for. So I've chosen this card here, which will be placed for the first time in a completely different threat-backed card, the new ones that got placed on top of the threat deck, so who knows what fun is coming our way here, and this will go into our hand. Now we have 2 avenues we could go here. We have a number of thieves, and the scary thing about them is the fact that the boss now is at a level 1 in terms of numeric value on the track, which means each one of these are now going to be 1, which means to kill off each of them will be 2 damage apiece, which is quite costly, and if we don't kill them off, they're hitting us back for 2 damage. So if we leave them there, we're taking 6 damage, dropping us down to 4, and that is not good. So we could do that in order to put all of our damage on the narrative card and move the narrative forward, which would be good in a way, but put us in a really bad spot health-wise, or we can actually focus on trying to take out maybe 1 or actually 2 of these individuals from this area. I think it just makes sense to go ahead and spend the action points for this card here, the 3 meters under, gaining an attack damage of 2 and an attack damage of 1. I'll place the first damage of 2 on this one here, which will knock it out, and we'll gain it. There's no bonus in the bottom left-hand corner, but we gain the card in hand. And the other single damage, I'll just go ahead and place on this one here. Then we'll go ahead with another strike card. We'll pay the cost, the last action point that we have, to place a final damage on this one, knocking this individual out and leaving 1 in the active threat area. That's going to do it for the main phase for me, so we're going to move to the threat phase. At this point, this individual with the 1 and 1 is going to come back and hit us for 2. I have no armor, so I can't actually mitigate any of that damage, so it goes right to my health as we trend our way down to 0 to lose the game, which I'm going to be doing everything I can to avoid. The cleanup phase happens, so we discard all of our tactic cards, lose any unspent action points we didn't have, reset the armor to 0, it was already at 0, we refill the battlefield till there's 3 threats in there. The only one that actually has a keyword on it is taunt, which means we're going to have to focus on this one first before the other one, so I placed it closer to the front, and we've got our 3 active threats, so now we can advance the danger by 1. The danger marker will move on the track down to the next position, which has another icon on it. This one tells us that we can spend 1 credit to eliminate 1 card from either our hand, in play, or the discard pile, but I don't have any credit, so I can't take advantage of this. Heading into a brand new turn, we're going to go ahead and replenish our action points. That's the only thing we need to do during the upkeep phase, and we head into a draft. Out of the 3 options here, I can see good things from each of the cards, but the one that pulls me the most is the cheapest one here for a single action point, and not only does it cost 1 to put this one into play, but I'll gain 2 back after playing it, plus a credit, plus some armor. I'm going to need that because the current active threats that I have right now, there is no way, unless some magic's going to happen during the turn, which might occur, in order to take all 3 of them out. They all look pretty nasty, and the first one I have to deal with the taunt keyword is a lot of health to take down. I think I've got a perfect storm situation here, which is not going to work out in my favor. You can see my active threats, but one of them has a keyword taunt. That means all my damage going forward inside of this turn has to hit this thing, but what's worse about that is the fact that, as you can see, I've upgraded this card over time. I provided this threat card with more upgrades, and by doing so have increased its overall health, because again, health is your attack and defense combined, and currently this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this boss one is now 1, so that's 6. 6 health to take that Sporling out. And the nasty thing is we have to take out the Sporling just to be able to get through, to be able to target these ones in the back, and this is the one I'm really primarily scared of because it has the highest amount of damage coming back towards us. So this is going to be terrifying, hence the reason why I went with this one, because I think I need to bump up my armor, knowing that I've got multiple attacks coming my way here. I need to try to keep myself on the brink, well, basically keep myself away from death. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and spend this one right off the hop. It's going to be 1 action point to do it. This is going to gain me 2 action points back, a credit, and 2 armor. So essentially we pay 1 action point from here, we're going to gain 2 right back, we're also going to gain ourselves a credit, and our armor is going to bump up, which is going to help us with all the damage that is coming our way in the future. I've only got 2 more to use, so I'm just going to go ahead and use them as is. Now the one thing I could do is I could spend my credit to get an upgrade. It might actually not be a bad idea because there is one up here that only costs 1. So let's go ahead and grab it for 1 credit. This is actually going to give me an armor as well, plus boost up my ability to draft better later on. We'll go ahead and slide this into a strike card. Not my favorite thing thing to do because I'm trying to calm my deck over time and get rid of these strike ones, but sometimes you need to make things work. So we're going to go ahead and play this strike one right now for 1 action point. We're going to bump up our armor 1 more space, again trying to help against all the crazy damage coming our way. We're going to bump up the top white disc to the next level position. So now the top disc has been moved to level 3. That's off camera way up top. And we're also going to be able to place a damage on one of the enemies, and it has to be the Sporling because it has taunt. And last but not least, we have 1 more strike card. We might as well go ahead and pay it and use it in order to keep on putting damage to that Sporling because we need to deal with it to get it out of here. So overall, not a very productive turn in terms of taking out the active threats, which is going to certainly come back to bite me in the threat phase coming up here, and that's exactly what we're moving into right now. So I am ending off my turn at this point, and we're going to have all of these threats throwing their damage at me. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. This boss one is an extra 1 from the boss reference card, so that's 4, and then 3 from this one over here. So a total of 7 damage coming at me. I only have 8 health. If I had taken all 7, this would have whittled me right down to 1, but thankfully I have at least 3 armor, so I block up 3 of it, only 4 gets through. So even though I didn't have a really productive turn in terms of taking out the active threats, I was able to kind of build up some defense to keep myself from being absolutely slaughtered. At this point now we're going to go ahead into the cleanup phase and do our typical steps. I went ahead and replenished the upgrade that I purchased from earlier in the turn. We move into the cleanup phase. Very simple to do. Tactics get discarded. Action points left over, gone. Armor reset to 0, but I used all my armor to hold off some of the damage, and there was a lot of damage coming at me, so that's done. We try to refill the battlefield, but we already have 3 active threats. We only refill up to 3 active threats, so we have that, so we leave it alone. Nothing else comes in. Then we go to advancing the danger, which I've already done. We've moved it down 1 on the track here. It's going to hit the next upgrade slot, so basically I can go ahead and put some of those upgrades to the bottom of the deck and basically cycle things out if I wish. So what I really need to do in this situation, knowing that I don't have many credits, is I need to find stuff that's relatively cheap, like 1 or 2 cost, get those kind of cards into this row, get some of the more expensive cost cards out of here, and of course make sure some of the upgrades allow us to generate more credits. If we can generate more credits, we can push the narrative deck for the boss. We can also start upgrading and really get the ball rolling. At this point, we're a little bit kinked because we haven't generated enough credits. So I went ahead and removed the 3 first cards of the upgrade row. They went to the bottom of the deck and drew from the top 3 more cards. So we have some other options out here. Most of them pertain to damage, but there is one there for credits. And the credit totals in terms of how much they cost kind of went down a little bit, but not probably as much as I would have liked. Going into the upkeep phase, we're getting our 3 action points left, and we head to the draft. Looking across these 3 cards to draft, this one will not help me because currently the ability on it needs to have 4 upgrades or more in your discard pile, which I don't currently have. I have 1 in there. So that's not a really great one for right now, although it does cost nothing to play. This one costs 1. It does give me 2 damage out to something, and then focus would potentially give me a little boost there for 1, but the amount of damage that would still come through, even if I got rid of the enemy that has taunt with this card, enough damage would come through from the other threats that I would be wiped out. So really, I'm leaning towards this one, which provides me with 6 defense to try to take another round of damage from all 3 of these threats, which would only leak 1 through, which I could live through to try to see what happens on the next turn, by buying myself some time. I think this is the one I go with. And it's worth mentioning I was drafting from level 3 because my top white token was 1 position forward. It was here, but now after drafting for level 3, it goes back on top at level 2 for the future. So you can see quite clearly that by not generating enough credits early on in the game and focusing on that, that has really stalled my engine in terms of deck building at this point. Now, it's not completely capped me, but it has put me into quite a kink at this point. So what I'm going to do is play this one here. It's going to cost all 3 of my action points to do this. We're going to bump up our defenses like crazy. This ability here won't help me right now, but in the future it might. We're going to have 7 damage again coming back through, but the armor is going to suck up 6 of it, so only 1 getting through, dropping me to 3. The cleanup phase occurs, everything gets reset back as per normal, and the danger level is going to go up by 1. And that's not good news because we're getting closer and closer to going up to the next numerical value, which is going to be 2, making those enemies in play with the boss icon on their cards even tougher. Upkeep phase is done. I got my 3 action points back. We're now into drafting from the level 2 deck, and we got these 3 cards to choose from. I'm going to go for Summon the Watch. All right, main phase begins. I'm going to choose to actually go ahead with my 3 off this card, which I'm going to use right now to pay 2 action points to do it. 3 damage, I'm going to assign it actually to the boss card, which has a cost of 3 damage I can assign there. Now, I had to push the narrative just out of curiosity, even though things are looking grim for me right now. It says, intimidate the lackeys. You burst onto the dock with weapons drawn, interrupting a game of 17 Slim. Pulling yourself up to your full height, you demand the location of their leader. When the pirates draw their own weapons, you realize that you've misread the situation. Deal 3 damage to any threat. So this actually would supersede the rule for the taunt keyword. And that's a game effect that's telling you can actually fire this damage at any threat. So that's actually a positive for me in this case. It says at the end of this turn, you can replace this card with card 02. So essentially, if I was to place the 3 damage on this one here, it wouldn't be enough to take it out. It needs 6. If I place it on this one here, it's also not enough because it currently has a health of 3 plus 1 off the defense of the boss. So that's 4. So that also wouldn't take it out. But I could put the 3 against this individual, knowing full well it's just going to be a strike card on the other side. So in any case, it's not going to be enough to do what I want to do. But I'll go ahead and blast this one away for now because it's the only one I can actually clear out of the row. I have a strike here. I can go ahead and now pay 1 action point to play the strike. We'll put 1 damage on the one which is taunting me, but it's still not enough to clear it out. And then unfortunately, the thing that I knew was going to happen is going to happen. The enemies are going to come back at me for a total of 3 damage off that one up there and 2 damage off this one right here, which is 5. And then it's going to blast me down to 0. And unfortunately, my character has fallen and we've lost. So as you can clearly see now, the strategy involved with crafting your deck in a way that allows you to potentially take the boss down is very important. And the biggest kink in this play for me was the fact I didn't have enough credit generation happening to be able to get enough upgrades on the cards I did have in hand to do as much as I needed to do on a given turn. I basically got into a situation where the cards I had in hand weren't enough to deal with the active threats. When you get into that situation where you can't take out an active threat, you're not getting a card back in your hand, and you get into a spot where I am here, where as the rounds go on, things get progressively worse for you. So you want to focus on credit generation. You want to focus, of course, on bumping up your damage. You want to focus on grabbing upgrades that are going to give you cool abilities. There's a number of things to focus on all at once, and you're going to have to keep that in mind at all times. Now, I'm not going to end the play just here. This video will come to an end, but I am going to do a revenge play against this guy, and now that we've actually learned the game, played through it, and lost, and you've seen me get destroyed, I'm going to come back at this one with the exact same setup, and we'll see if we can focus on credits a little earlier on much faster and see if we can get our engine going that much better. So that, my friends, is going to wrap up the game overview and gameplay video for Unstoppable, landing on Kickstarter for June 18th. You got to see all the components laid out in terms of a setup for gameplay. You got to see how the game flows and operates, and you also got to witness me get absolutely crushed. Now, I've played this multiple times off camera. I have won at times, and I have lost at times. This was probably one of the worst losses I've actually had, which is kind of funny that it was on camera, hence the reason why I'm definitely going to do a revenge play. So when this video goes live, there'll also be a second playthrough that'll be going out on the exact same day, going through this one again. We're going to go ahead and see if we can pull off a victory. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, and as always, keep on rolling solo.